When you run your own business, you have a career as an accountant, stock taker, delivery driver, therapist, legal expert, mother, father, and the rest. But there's one area you don't need to be an expert in. At Brava, we take the complexity out of your business solutions. We keep it simple, so you can get along with doing what you do. Brava, the Simplify My Business company.
Why is my bill higher? These days, it might seem like the cost of everything is going up here in Cayman. When it comes to your energy bill, this may be no exception. You may be wondering why your bill is higher when you haven't done anything different in your home. Here are some common factors that will increase your energy usage. As temperatures outside increase, your air conditioning unit has to run longer to keep your house cool, even if you haven't adjusted the thermostat. During the summer months, cooling your home can make up more than half of your energy bill. It's important to maintain your AC so that it can function as efficiently as possible. Changing your AC filters can also help with ensuring units are functioning properly. Remember, for every degree you turn up your thermostat, you can save on your monthly energy cost. Turn off your AC when no one is home. Thermostat should not be set any lower than 78 degrees. Also consider closing blinds and drapes on the sunny side of your home. This will help reduce the temperature inside your home. Remember to consider energy waste. Think about the items in your home that are using energy, like gaming computers and ceiling fans. Always unplug and turn these items off when they are not in use or needed. This will help you conserve. Now that you have some energy saving tips, you can track your consumption daily on MyCUC. Learn more at www.cuc-cayman.com.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us. Welcome to the third of 19 candidate forums for the 2025 general elections in the Cayman Islands, proudly hosted by the Cayman Islands Chamber of Commerce. My name is Omari Corbin, and I'm honored to serve as the current president of the Chamber of Commerce. I'm also pleased to be one of the panelists posing questions to our candidates this evening. Before we begin, I sincerely thank the three prospect candidates, Mr. Michael Miles, Mrs. Crystal Gomez-Wilson, and Mrs. Sabrina Turner, for accepting our invitation to participate in tonight's forum. By appearing together on this platform, you demonstrate a shared commitment to the democratic process and the people of Prospect. Your presence signals your readiness to address the pressing issues raised by the community through a recent chamber survey, which has helped shape the questions we'll be asking tonight. While time won't allow us to cover every question submitted, we will do our best to focus on the topics identified as most important to voters in the Cayman Islands and Prospect. When the Chamber was founded in 1965, it was built on the principle of supporting, promoting, and protecting the interests of our members and the wider community. Remaining strictly nonpartisan, we have proudly hosted these candidate forums every election year since 1988. We provided a neutral platform for 9 elections where voters can hear directly from those seeking public office, helping our community make informed decisions on election day. The questions for tonight's forum have been carefully developed based on past and current chamber surveys, our 3-year advocacy agenda, and submissions from the public in various constituencies. No candidate has received these questions in advance, ensuring a fair and open discussion. As an organization committed to supporting a strong and sustainable Cayman, the Chamber's advocacy efforts focus on 3 key pillars: building a future-ready workforce, sustaining economic success, and advancing quality of life. The newly elected Chamber Council believes these pillars are fundamental to our island's continued growth and prosperity. Looking ahead, the Chamber intends to work with the incoming government to develop a government accountability scorecard to ensure accountability and transparency. Additionally, We will seek representation on key government boards and authorities as we believe our members bring valuable expertise that can help shape effective policies and initiatives. These forums require months of coordination, and I'd like to acknowledge the tremendous effort of Will and our chamber staff who have worked diligently behind the scenes. I'd also like to express our gratitude to Ashley's Furniture, Foster's, CUC, and Logic for their generous sponsorships which have made these forums possible, and to our media partners, Cayman Mile Road, Cayman Live TV, and ICCI FM for broadcasting tonight's event. We are live streaming the forums, making it easier than ever for voters to tune in from the comfort of their homes. We hope this added accessibility encourages even greater participation in the democratic process. And now, it's time to begin. I'll turn the proceedings over to Will Panu, CEO of the Chamber of Commerce, who will serve as tonight's moderator. Will outline the forum's rules and introduce our prospect candidates.
Good evening, candidates. Here are the rules for tonight's forum. Each candidate will be asked 10 questions, or more depending on the time. You'll have 2 minutes to elaborate on each question if you choose to do so. I will notify you when the timer is elapsed with a quick ring in the... You'll hear that. Basically means to wrap up when you hear it. Each candidate will be allowed to answer the question without interruption, is free to differ with an opinion or position of a fellow candidate during your allotted response time. And we ask that candidates deal solely with the issues, and at the conclusion of the forum, each candidate will be allowed 2.5 minutes to deliver a closing statement. I'd now like to introduce the candidates for this evening from Prospect. The first candidate, and all of them were seated by draw. First candidate is Michael Miles. Michael is the Cayman Islands National Party candidate for Prospect. His passion for service and leadership was nurtured from a young age, culminating in a 4-year football scholarship to Lindsey Wilson College, where he earned a Bachelor of Arts in Human Services in 1995. With 35 years of experience addressing the needs of families and youth, Michael began as a social worker intern at the Department of Social Services and advanced to leadership roles, including team leader at the Cayman Islands Marine Institute, house manager at Bonaventure Boys Home, and at-risk youth coordinator at the Ministry of Education. His visionary approach led to impactful initiatives like the behavioral and education support teams, which impacted over 250 school-age students, the extended after-school program, which continues to affect over 1,500 public school students, and Youth Act, which has positively impacted over 4,000 youth. In 2019, Michael founded Inspire Cayman Training Limited to bridge gaps in technical vocational education and training and professional development. Under his leadership, the ICT has become an accredited training center, equipping over 800 of Cayman's youth for sustainable careers. Michael's unwavering commitment has raised over $5 million for youth development. His extensive experience in community service positions him well to advocate for the needs of Prospect and across the Cayman Islands. Welcome, Michael. Crystal Gomez Wilson is the People's Progressive Movement candidate for Prospect. A graduate of Holt International Business School in London, she has worked across multiple sectors, developing strategic communications and managing stakeholder relations. Her family's connection to public service shaped her outlook from childhood. Her father served as supervisor of elections, overseeing democratic processes in Cayman. Her mother worked as a healthcare advocate, while her grandmother helped secure voting rights for Caymanian women. Now that she is raising a family in Prospect, Crystal faces the same challenges as her neighbors. She navigates morning traffic on Shamrock Road, manages a household budget amid rising costs, and works to ensure safe spaces for her children. Through her Meals on Wheels volunteer service, she delivers food to Prospect seniors listening to their housing concerns, healthcare needs, and experiences of isolation, as well as conversations that shape her perspective on community development. She advocates for targeted food mitigation and traffic management solutions for the Prospect Corridor. She supports housing initiatives that benefit young Caymanian families and works towards improved community resources for youth and seniors. She also prioritizes accessible vocational training and job connection services for Prospect residents. With experience in private and public sectors, she applies her problem-solving skills and community knowledge to address Prospect's needs. Her approach addresses immediate concerns while developing plans for Prospect's future. Welcome, Crystal. Sabrina Turner is the Caymanian Community Party candidate for Prospect. She has dedicated over 2 decades to serving her community. Before entering politics, she was a driving force in local activism, leading the Red Bay Prospect Community Group and spearheading emergency response initiatives to support and uplift residents. With a background in nursing, Sabrina brought invaluable expertise to her role as Minister of Health and Wellness. She modernized pharmacy legislation, improved healthcare access, and expanded career opportunities in the pharmaceutical industry. She also championed social welfare programs and strengthened public health services to ensure every Caymanian received the care they deserved. Her leadership extends beyond healthcare. As Minister for Home Affairs, she secured critical funding and resources for uniformed services, enhancing public safety and emergency response. Her knowledge of immigration law and policy gained her tenure as an immigration officer and on the Caymanian Status and Permanent Residency Board. She has made her an advocate for Caymanian rights and economic opportunities. She played a critical role in guiding Cayman through COVID-19 crisis, ensuring stability and safety. Today, she remains committed to putting people first, focusing on road safety, stormwater management, and more substantial community initiatives to build a safer, more prosperous Prospect. With those introductions, we'll now take a commercial break, and when we return, the panel here will begin their questioning. Please stay tuned. Wow, you guys are...
For the past 58 years, CUC has strived to be more than just an electricity provider. We have sought to be a foundational company. We give back to our community, and with the hard work and dedication of our employees, we have built and maintained one of the safest and most reliable electricity grids in the region. As we all look to the future, we at CUC want the Grand Cayman community to have confidence that our commitment to you will continue. Join us as we continue this journey together at empoweringcayman.com.
When you run your own business, you have a career as an accountant, stock taker, delivery driver, therapist, legal expert, mother, father, and the rest. But there's one area you don't need to be an expert in. At Brava, we take the complexity out of your business solutions. We keep it simple, so you can get along with doing what you do. Brava, the Simplify My Business company.
Welcome back to the Chamber of Commerce Candidate Forum for the constituency of Prospect. It's now time to turn over to the panel. For the first questions, I'll turn it over to President Omari Corbin.
Thank you, Will. Mr. Miles, we'll start with you. Can you share why you have decided to run in this year's election and how you intend to represent the people of Prospect if elected?
years, successive governments have failed our people. I'm running to change that. We now have higher cost of living. It's now at an all-time high. We have unaffordable health insurance. We have unaffordable food. We have unaffordable housing. Our education system is struggling. And our development is out of control. Our people want change. And as you read from my bio, I'm a change agent. Our people are sick of politics and the same old. I'm running because our people want a different government and a different stance on government. We want a government that makes us ask the question, who are we building for at this point? I'm running because the majority of Caymanians are fed up with the current system. I'm running because we have mortgaged our children's lives. We now owe over $700 million, and I can't afford to suffer through another 4 years of that. I'm also running because I believe that I'm running with a group of people who have a stance that they want to change Cayman for the better. And I believe with our specific skill sets, we can do that. In the last 2 months, I've watched Prospect at least twice. I've spoke to at least 1,000 people. We've done a number of different polls in Prospect and surveys. The biggest challenges that we are now struggling with in Prospect are all national issues: cost of living, employment issues, affordable housing, flooding. 4 years ago, I sat in this very room and we were discussing the same thing. 4 years later, we are still discussing the same thing. All we have done is kick the can down the road. I'm running to change that. And I'm running with a group of people at the Cayman Islands National Party to change that.
Thank you, Mr. Miles. Mrs. Gomez-Wilson, I'll repeat the question. Can you share why you decided to run in this year's election and how you intend to represent the people of Prospect if elected?
Thank you. Good evening, everybody tuning in tonight. Good evening to Mr. Miles and Ms. Turner, and good evening to all of you. I have much more of a personal reason for running in this election. I said that when I turned 40 that I was going to finally throw my hat in the ring, and I did last year. And it was just so happened that at the same time, it all came in to play that I was going, this is it was my time. It was now or never, and I think that we can all agree that the Cayman Islands is at a crucial time, so why not now? Naturally, after having 2 kids, that also helped to push me over the edge because I was no longer responsible for just myself. I was now responsible for their well-being. And if I'm sitting here terrified about my own retirement, then what is that going to look like for my children when they enter, the workforce and when they're looking to buy a house or own a piece of their own country? So it was all of these things that factored into me actually throwing my hat into the ring. And then naturally, becoming a member of the PPM, I'm one of the newest members of the PPM, getting together with them and like-minded people that are ready to take charge of the government come April 30th. It was just a natural assimilation for me, and I am proud and ready to serve the people of Prospect. As Mr. Miles has stated, I've been doing my rounds, speaking to people and listening and trying to understand. I'm new to this, very new to this, but I'm not new to hard work. I'm not new to working hard and figuring out what it is that needs to be done. I'm not new to getting things done. Those are all things that are in my nature. I can't describe my calling to get into politics and my calling to serve the people, but doing this and sitting here tonight, this is it for me. This is why I'm here, for the people, for my family, for all of the families in the Cayman Islands.
Thank you, Mrs. Gomez-Wilson. Mrs. Turner, do you need me to repeat the question?
No, not necessary. Thank you. My primary motivation to stand for political office the second time around is to finish the works that I have started. It's a little different approach coming in as an incumbent candidate and in comparison to 2021 as a first-timer. You're looking at it from both perspectives, as from a national level and also on a local level. Based on the engagements that I have continued to do, the 3 pressing issues locally in Prospect that is resounding are stormwater management, the speeding and road safety, community building, and of course more national issues of cost of living, education and pension reform, along with health insurance amendments that are required. Prospect from day one has struggled with flooding, and everyone can use it, but not a lot understand it. And hope has been seen in addressing this issue since I've been elected, and I will continue to advocate for sustainable solutions in this area, and also advocate for the relevant planning regulations in order to address the development that is happening, to aid in making sure that we can have the necessary legislation in place for new developments that will protect our homes, our communities, and all other water-related issues that we have plaguing us. When we're looking at speeding, everyone knows per capita the amount of speeding that happens on Spot Street, Shamrock Road, my constituents of Cascades, Miss Roleader, and Orchid Heights. That whole stretch right there, including Ocean Club. I will continue and to advocate for that, working with the various government agencies in making sure that we have speed calming measures installed to aid in that. That's a bigger picture because we have this issue island-wide. But since being elected to office and understanding exactly what's happening, that's a culture shift that we're not accustomed to. And it's going to take everybody to do their share and their part in combating speeding within our community. Also, community building for all. Our Prospect community is a diverse community, and it is vital to engage residents of all ages so that we can continue to integrate and to make people feel invested into their community.
Well, thank you very much. We've gone through the first question. At this time, we're going to take a short commercial break. Please stay tuned.
When you run your own business, you have a career as an accountant, stock taker, delivery driver, therapist, legal expert, mother, father, and the rest. But there's one area you don't need to be an expert in. At Brava, we take the complexity out of your business solutions. We keep it simple, so you can get along with doing what you do. Brava, the Simplify My Business company.
At CUC, we care about helping our customers. Here are some quick energy saving tips from CUC so you can use less energy and save money. Set your AC Smart thermostat to maintain an indoor temperature of 87 degrees Fahrenheit or higher when you are away from home, and have the temperature cool to a comfortable 78 degrees Fahrenheit or higher when you arrive home. Adding insulation can cut your cooling costs by 15 to 45%, depending on your home's size and current insulation. Focus on insulating your attic, walls, and windows for the best results. For your laundry, avoid over-drying clothes. Not only does it waste energy, but it also harms fabrics. Dry towels and heavier cottons separately from lighter weight fabrics to save energy. Your TV and gaming setup can be big energy consumers. Save costs by reducing in-game settings and turning off your console when not in use. Remember, every small step counts. Use energy wisely and make a big difference in your energy bills and the environment.
Welcome back. I'll now turn it over to past President Shamari Scott for a question on national issues.
Thank you, Will. And I will start with you, Mrs. Gomez-Wilson. And the question is, what three national issues would you seek to address if elected?
Thank you. So based off of all of the canvassing that every single one of us has been doing across the Cayman Islands, we've obviously sat together and listened and learned and tried to figure out exactly what it is. Naturally, cost of living has come up across the board. I think every candidate that comes on this platform is going to bring up the cost of living. And it affects people in different ways. I mean, I have young children. The cost of living is very different for me and what it is that I'm concerned about versus, a single household or even a single parent household. So all of these things, we've been listening and learning and trying to understand what it is that we can do at home to deal with the cost of living. Now, we rely heavily on U.S. imports. We all know this. It is how we've all grown up with things in the U.S., goods coming from the U.S. And I have to apologize to everybody tonight. I am not feeling my best. I am struggling tonight, but I'm going to get through this. If you have some vitamin C, I recommend you take it. Anyway. But I think looking at how we can change the cost of living in terms of what we're looking at in grocery stores is a completely different topic altogether. What we need to focus on is housing. That is definitely very, very that is definitely more of what we need to focus on by helping with down payments with local banks, reviewing the government guaranteed home assistance mortgage program, which has changed significantly since it was first introduced in 2008. Obviously pushing rent to own initiatives so that the Cayman people can own a piece of their own country, and designing alternate housing options for affordable housing, such as apartment complexes. And that not only eases maintenance and upkeep of these properties, but we have to recognize that we are not growing more land in Cayman. That is one asset that we have that we don't have the luxury of owning. And
Mrs. Turner, do you need me to repeat the question, or you're good?
Fine, thank you.
Okay.
The three national issues that I would seek to address along with my colleagues in no particular order as running with the TCCP party. Definitely on the top of the list, we are hearing cost of living. That's resounding even in our youth. We have a youth arm with the TCCP, and that came out as one of their top ones. One of their ways in addressing that charity begins at home. We can look at initiatives and programs to make sure that our housing are run more efficiently. Do programs where you can actually do things that can lower the utility bills, therefore leaving more funds in people's pockets at the end of the day. National security. It seems as though this is the topic that is only brought up when we have a spat in crimes. This can affect all aspects of quality of life, mental health, and actually our tourism program. We need to do more investment in making sure that our borders do not remain as porous as they are, make sure that we have sufficient funding, that we can assist and be able to make sure that our frontline staff and uniformed services are respected and get the necessary equipment and skill set that it needs to have them performing at their best at all times. And also education. We have a lot of work to do with education, and not all is lost at all. We have to look at going back to the fundamentals where each one teach one, and look at making sure that we capture this in the early ages of education so that is transitioned throughout health, throughout education. Mental health is also at the top of the list. But when you look at national security, quality of life, sustainability, all of these are key pillars in making us a unique society. And when you really have to itemize the top three, there's about 15 right now, but what can you realistically deal with and bring over the finish line as an elected administration is what is the mandate of the people. And what is screaming loud right now is cost of living, education, and national security, because that is crucial to the foundation and bedrock of who we are as a people.
Thank you, Mrs. Turner. Mr. Miles, do you need me to repeat the question? All right.
Good.
Thank you, sir.
I believe that over the last 25 to 30 years, we've had a really great opportunity to really serve our community. All of what we've just said has been national issues for the last 4 years, have been the last 10 years, 15 years. We've kicked the immigration reform down the road on a consistent basis. Our party is looking at multiple challenges that we face, but immigration reform is by far one of the highest priorities for us. And here's why. If we can fix, or when we fix immigration reform, we fix housing, we fix traffic, we fix the port, we fix a number of different things. We have not done that in the last 4 years. So when I hear that we need another 4 more years to discuss this, I'm a little out on that. I think immigration reform should have been fixed 10 years ago. We are now putting that back on the table again. When we've looked at development, we have to have a national development plan. Every government in the last 30 years have discussed a national development plan. In every 4 years, we develop more and more pet projects, and there's your flooding. There's your overcrowding, there's your housing issues, there's your real estate issues. It encompasses everything. So as the Cayman Islands National Party rolls out its mandates, one is immigration reform for us. Two, we are going to be looking at a national development plan because it affects everything. Yes, cost of living, but cost of living isn't unique to just one thing. Cost of living rolls up into housing, utilities, food, health insurance, home insurance, a number of different things. For us to be at this stage again when we are discussing this, I think it's outrageous. We now have to actually do it. We have to stop kicking the can down the road. Our responsibility now is to actually put these things in place.
Thank you, Mr. Miles.
Mrs. Turner, I'll start with you for question number 3. Do you believe the current point system for permanent residency works as intended? And if not, what changes would you propose?
My answer to that question is no. I do not believe that the point system as it is right now has worked as it intended, because we had never ever gotten a priorities list when it came to priorities where you had a demand for a specific industry or occupations. There was no points were ever given for that. What that point system and immigration laws as it pertains to the point system also created this demand for persons to purchase property, which is why we're having this talk today about housing and people land banking and properties just being bought and not occupied, while we as Indigenous Caymanians or people, Caymanians period, living in our islands are strapped with inflated cost in access to actual property. It was not intended to be that way. It was to remove discretion and make it fair and balanced. What changes I would make is honestly just taking a national approach and really understanding the direction in which our jurisdiction, our country, our people want to go. Where is our priority? Do we want to explore other avenues where income is concerned and stop using immigration as one of the major driving mechanisms for income? Even with the white paper, not going into that, that is sending a wrong impression. We do not want any form of legislation or point system for anyone who's decided to be amongst us to create a divisive environment where it's him versus us. We want inclusive, we want togetherness. And one of the changes I would definitely look is engaging, getting data, taking a data-driven approach from where we as a country see ourselves and make those priorities from there. Even if we go back to the point system, it is aligned with what industries we want to actually champion and harness. Is it medical tourism? Is it sports tourism? Diversifying where we derive our income is key, but we cannot do this without the involvement and input from every Caymanian living here.
Thank you, Mrs. Turner. Mr. Miles, I'll repeat the question. Do you believe the current point system for permanent residency works as intended? And if not, what changes would you propose?
The current point system doesn't work for us. It doesn't work for our people. It never have. It only worked for the top 10%. What has happened in the last 4 years, we've kicked the football down the way, and everybody just go on and chase. What we are proposing is to do away with it, period. We have to return to the Caymanian protection law, where it protects our people. We have to now be priority back in our country. We have almost 40,000 work permits in the Cayman Islands. Our kids are buckling under the competition that is coming in. They can't compete. I work with young people all day. They're losing hope. Many of them have lost hope. Our responsibility now is to ensure that our people can afford proper housing, and we cannot have this particular point system where the actual goal of this point system is to buy property. We can allow someone to sit in Canada, the US, the UK, or anywhere in the world and send $1 million to Cayman and buy as much property as they possibly can. And yet we've sat back as a government and we've allowed that to happen. I don't think that there's any more research that needs to happen. We've done more than enough research in our country to ensure that proper systems are put in place to ensure that we protect Caymanians. So on day one, our responsibility, as I said, immigration is our number one priority. We fix immigration and we fix housing. Because I don't think that we have a housing issue. We have an immigration issue. And because we have an immigration issue and we're letting just anyone buy Cayman citizenship at this point, we have to now change that.
Thank you, Mr. Miles. Mrs. Gomez-Wilson, do you need me to repeat the question?
No, thank you. I do personally believe that the point system is a bit skewed. And you can't put a price on having good people that want to live in your country. You know, I've come across many people from all walks of life that, you know, they could not fill out or tick all the boxes to actually end up with permanent residency. And they deserve to live here. They've done what I think every person who chooses to work and live in the Cayman Islands should do, which is to assimilate into the culture. But, you know, if property is inaccessible, there's certain things that they just can't tick off to actually obtain permanent residency. Population growth, we do know, is booming. It's out of control. Our islands, I think, have been at capacity for years and years and years. And as my colleagues have stated, I'm so sorry. I'm going to leave it at that.
Thank you, Mrs. Gomez-Wilson.
All right, it's back to me. Round 4. I will start with you, Mr. Miles. Okay. What improvements to the road system would you recommend for residents in the Prospect area to improve safety?
Several years ago, our government paid $250,000 to Deloitte to provide us a national transportation plan. To date, we have not implemented anything of that plan. It's not just about Prospect. I think we're all buckling under traffic. And because we're buckling under traffic with no plan, we now have almost 50,000 cars in our country. So we've paid a lot of money for a plan. We haven't executed the plan. And then we're turning around and saying, well, there's too much traffic in our roads. So here's what we're doing. We're spending millions of dollars in building more roads. And then we are saying that we have more speeders on the roads. So now we need to now pay for more police officers. We need to pay for more traffic cameras in order to fix the problem. Only had we just implemented the plan. We've paid good money for it. The goal for us right now is to look at the National Transportation Plan and execute it. We need national busing. We have to make sure that our private schools in particular get at least some national busing to ensure that we're taking more cars off the road. If we do that, I mean, let's face it. Look at traffic when there's no school. It is smooth sailing all the way through from East End to Georgetown and back. We know the problem. We have a plan. We have to execute the plan.
Thank you, Mr. Miles. And we'll come to you now, Mrs. Gomez-Wilson. Do you need to repeat the question?
I do not. And I do have to apologize. I am very new to this. I am a little nervous and I am not at my best. So I do have to apologize for my previous attempts to answer the questions. On the traffic issue, though, I think this does affect absolutely every single one of us in Cayman. We should not be spending hours in the morning and hours returning home, losing quality time with our families, just trying to make it home. I know that I, as a mother of 2, my favorite time of the day is sitting down with my kids, having a meal. That's the time that I cherish. And, you know, if I was a resident of Northside, East End, obviously even Prospect, we have to fight traffic and get home at 6:30, 7 o'clock and lose that prime time. There's no easy fix for anything to do with traffic, but there is small steps that I feel that we can take to improve the ease of our morning and evening commutes. In instances where employees are not customer facing in particular, I feel that they should be working from home. The way that we do business is changing. The way that the world does business is changing. You do not have to physically be in an office to conduct business effectively. My previous position, I ran a road safety program and also championed the driver's ed program through some of the local schools where we taught theory and we also did practical. And if you graduated with a certificate in that program, when you went on to actually achieve your driver's license, you would get discounts on your insurance because you went through that program. Road safety is something that I am very, very dead set on working very closely, if elected, with young people in Cayman, because I feel that life is not valued anymore. When you see the speeding, when you see the people weaving in and out of traffic in the morning with no regard for laws. I mean, we can put up cone after cone after cone, but if people don't appreciate and respect each other on the road, nothing is going to change. And I also fully agree with looking into who has the right to own and import vehicles in Cayman. I don't feel that a car should be insurable if it does not meet the right safety standards. There are a number of small steps that we need to take to actually help with road safety as well as improving traffic in the mornings.
Thank you, Mrs. Gomez-Wilson. Mrs. Turner, do you need to repeat the question?
No, thank you. The improvements to the road system I would recommend for the residents in the Prospect area to improve safety would be continuing to educate, be your neighbors' keepers, because in the district, the constituency of Prospect, a lot of the offenders and speeders are neighbors that we know. Our young people. We have a lot of pedestrians because we have a lot of persons who walk their dogs, exercise, jog, even cycle in the Prospect constituency. And we have installed a number of speed calming devices. That was a renowned sound of Marina Drive, Mahogany, Mangrove, and we've had to cries for resurfacing of our roads, better lighting, and that has been done in obscured and darkened areas. But most importantly are the bus shelters that are needed for the children who are along that east-west arterial that is exposed to persons just speeding and taking shortcuts off of Poindexter. Thank God for the dividers that have been installed at Poindexter now. We no longer have that rush of traffic off Spot Straight anymore, just feeding through Poindexter and clogging up the inner roads. People have been asking for sidewalks, but of course working with the NRA and making sure that we're not encroaching on persons' private lands. That is something that has been asked for, and it's something that I will continue to advocate for. But it's not as easy as saying, let's do it now. That's not how it works. You need environmental impact studies. You need to work hand in hand with other government agencies to make sure that you can carry out the will and the acts of the people. But when you look specifically within the area, we have to be our brothers and sisters keepers, because the speeding that is happening within the immediate area of Prospect are a lot of the persons that live there. And that is a behavior and a culture that has to change, and everyone should be responsible.
Thank you, Mrs. Turner. Mrs. Gomez-Wilson, I'll start with you. Question number 5. Given the growing challenges within the private pension system, including aging population, low contribution rates, and insufficient pension balances, what steps would you take to reform the system to ensure its sustainability and adequacy for future generations?
So back when COVID hit, I was actually working with one of the local pension administrators. And I remember when the call for the emergency withdrawal came into play, people were going through desperate times. We were unsure of what the future was going to hold. We didn't actually know what COVID-19 was at the time. We had no idea how long our country was going to be withhold our borders. We were just so unsure of everything at that point. And we got the call to come on. We need to organize emergency withdrawals so people can survive during those uncertain times. And at the time, people, of course, took advantage of it. People needed it desperately. But I don't think that the repercussions of what that was going to cause for a lot of the citizens in Cayman were at the front of their minds at the time. And naturally, it wouldn't be. And I know that people now understand that you can take your pension out for various reasons. I remember growing up, I just thought pension was, a plan that you had for retirement. I didn't know that it was accessible for education or for medical expenses or for housing. I had no idea until I reached the age where I needed to withdraw some of my pension for those very reasons. I know that a lot of the constituents that I've spoken to are elderly, and a lot of them are surviving on what I actually deem to be completely unreasonable, if not inhumane, to survive. It is not okay to survive on the amount of money that they're getting, the help that they're getting with the pensions that they have access to right now. Saving and saving and saving is not going to prepare us. Whatever we have in our pension fund savings that we have is not going to prepare us for the way that Cayman is going when it comes to the cost of living and to the future. So we basically do have to look at pension reform. I am by no means an expert on that, but as a government, the PPM will definitely look to see how we can alleviate those issues.
Thank you, Mrs. Gomez-Wilson. Mrs. Turner, I'll repeat the question. Given the growing challenges within the private pension system, including an aging population, low contribution rates, and insufficient pension balances, what steps would you take to reform the system to ensure sustainability and adequacy for future generations?
Thank you. Pension investment regulation needs to be updated, hands down, in order to allow pension funds to enhance investment options to boost returns. Who is at the losing end of this is when our country actually adopted pension. No mechanisms was placed in to capture those persons who have worked and had reached retirement age, let's say even less than 3 years after the pension fund was mandatory. And we did not do enough to make sure that those persons who we are now here standing on their shoulders are actually almost aged out of the system with no form of recourse to make them live lives that are graceful and respected. We know that pensions are underfunded, and we need to ensure that pension reform is actually brought about to ensure that people will have adequate amount in place for retirement. Short-term removal does not help the long-term gains, because at the end of the day, we will continue to have this systemic problem if we keep going into it early and not looking at pension for what it was there for the later years of life. But we have failed our people in regards to the earlier persons who have worked and who have now reached retirement age, and there's no way of them making it up. We have to look at innovative ways in order so that we can take care of our people so that they can live healthy, graceful lives into their golden years.
Thank you, Mrs. Turner. Mr. Miles, you need me to repeat the question?
Thank you. I want to read something that I think that the Cayman listening audience need to hear, because when we talk about pension reform, I need the alarm bells to go off. In the last report from the Auditor General, it was titled Improving Financial Accountability and Transparency. This was done in February of 2025. The government has significant long-term disabilities for civil servants, pensions, and post-retirement healthcare insurance. As of December 2023, the government healthcare liability was estimated at $2.4 billion. And the present value of unfunded pension of liability was $328 million. We have always known that there was an issue. And yet, during COVID, we said to everyone, go take out your pension. We gave them no we gave them no guidelines. We gave them no guardrails in order to do that. So what happened? People took their pensions out, they didn't pay down on their houses, and they didn't certainly pay off their bills. We had a lot of people who bought new cars, went on vacations, and bought a lot of stuff. Because of us. We did that as a government, we did it as politicians, because we wanted to score one for the team. What we have to now do is start to now look at no one going back in their pension. Because here's what's happening. The Department of Financial Assistance has been the new pension subsidy. NAU, or what it was formerly called, is now paying over $60 million in subsidizing pension and health insurance. Now, if that's not enough to scare young people that are 13, 14 years old, because this is who's going to be paying for this in the next 25, 30, maybe 40 years. We have to be able to protect our seniors now. It's way too late for them to catch up. But what I and my organization is now going to be recommending is that the pension funds is actually implemented here on island. We now have to invest it here in Cayman. We have a lot of money floating around in pensions, and it has to be invested here in the Cayman Islands so our people benefit from it.
Mr. Miles.
We've gone through the first 5 questions. Well done, candidates. We're going to take a short commercial break. We'll be right back. Please stay tuned.
When you run your own business, you have a career as an accountant, stock taker, delivery driver, therapist, legal expert, mother, father, and the rest. But there's one area you don't need to be an expert in. At Brava, we take the complexity out of your business solutions. We keep it simple, so you can get along with doing what you do. Brava, the Simplify My Business company.
Why is my bill higher? These days, it might seem like the cost of everything is going up here in Cayman. When it comes to your energy bill, this may be no exception. You may be wondering why your bill is higher when you haven't done anything different in your home. Here are some common factors that will increase your energy usage. As temperatures outside increase, your air conditioning unit has to run longer to keep your house cool, even if you haven't adjusted the thermostat. During the summer months, cooling your home can make up more than half of your energy bill. It's important to maintain your AC so that it can function as efficiently as possible. Changing your AC filters can also help with ensuring units are functioning properly. Remember, for every degree you turn up your thermostat, you can save on your monthly energy cost. Turn off your AC when no one is home. Thermostat should not be set any lower than 78 degrees. Also consider closing blinds and drapes on the sunny side of your home. This will help reduce the temperature inside your home. Remember to consider energy waste. Think about the items in your home that are using energy, like gaming computers and ceiling fans. Always unplug and turn these items off when they are not in use or needed. This will help you conserve. Now that you have some energy saving tips, you can track your consumption daily on MyCUC. Learn more at www.cuc-cayman.com.
Welcome back to the Chamber of Commerce Candidates Forum for the constituency of Prospect. We've run through the first 5 questions. Now we're turning it over to past President Shamari Scott with a question on growth management.
Thank you, Will. Mrs. Turner, I'll start with you. Would you support establishing a national program like Vision 2008 to gather the general public's views on developing a long-term vision for the Cayman Islands?
Right up my alley. I'm data-driven. And of course, the best investment is actually engaging your locals. When you look at what I was able to do with even the STEP survey in getting some sort of gauge when it comes to the health and welfare of our Cayman Islands. I went to the people first. That is no different when it comes to a national program like Vision 2008. My surprise is why was it never ever considered? Because some decisions on a national front, we are here where we are having these type of conversations now in 2025 because excellent engagement, stakeholder participation of 2008 was never taken into consideration. Data, data, data. Getting your people invested and being part of your growth will be the foundation of where we are moving forward. And yes, I would support developing long-term vision for the Cayman Islands, but only with all hands-on data taken from our people, getting all NGOs, all government agencies, and everyone participating, no matter what your level in society is, education level, nothing. Everybody plays a role in where we're going forward. And like I said, it's already there. Let's build on what Vision 2008 has actually put in place, some of the recommendations placed there, and modernize it right now. But the key is public participation, going to them, having them feel invested in where we're going as a nation.
Thank you, Mrs. Turner. Mr. Miles, do you need me to repeat the question? Sure. Okay. It's about growth management. Would you support establishing a national program like Vision 2008 to gather the general public's views on developing a long-term vision for the Cayman Islands?
Yes. One of our mandates as the Cayman Islands National Party is to implement, not just establish, implement a national development plan. Once again, we have had lots of data around this. I don't think we need any more data. I think what we are doing is looking at data as an escape and an excuse for actually not acting. So every successive government, and I've been in government a very long time as well, and I've worked in multiple departments in government. All governments come in, they pay a lot of money for consultants to come in and tell them a number of different things, and they never put anything in place. So when I hear data, 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 we have the Economics and Statistics Office that has data on just about everything. What we have done is allow politicians to come in. We have provided them $1.5 billion. They spend a lot of money on doing pet projects, and then they move on to the next thing and said, well, we need more data to do that. Our responsibility now is to actually implement what we actually put on paper. We do not need any more data in our country. We have more than enough. We now have to become implementers. With the Cayman Islands National Party, we have skill sets. We have people who have been accomplished. We have people who have actually been physical responsible. We have entrepreneurs. We have people who have been in real estate. We have people who have been in government, and we have people who have been in major private sector firms. The goal for us as a country is no longer data. The goal for us as a country is implementation.
Thank you, Mr. Miles. Mrs. Gomez-Wilson, do you need me to repeat the question? Sure. Okay. It's a question about growth management. Would you support establishing a national program like Vision 2008 to gather the general public's views on developing a long-term vision for the Cayman Islands?
Yes, I mean, part of my manifesto for Prospect is to draw on the natural resources, or as in the people that we have within the constituency. I've come across some amazing leaders, educators, athletes, mentors. We have incredible resources in our people. So naturally, the next step of gathering collectively all of those views, opinions, thoughts, data, all of that is a natural progression. We've seen in this day and age how vocal people are on social media about their views and how they feel about a certain topic, and what needs to be done, what needs to be changed in government, in the private sector, across the board. I don't see why we wouldn't capture all of that, to use that to push us forward. But I do think that at the core of it, our main question has to remain, what do we do with that information, with that data after the fact? These are all things that I think desperately need to come into play. When we have all of this information, when we have all of these views, when we have all of these collective opinions, what happens after that? And I feel like a lot of Caymanians are asking that question right now. What is going to happen? What is the next step? As politicians, we have to understand that now more than ever, we are going to be held more accountable. People are way more vocal, they are way more involved, and they want answers. Thank you.
Mr. Miles, question 7 will be to you first. What strategies would you propose to address the skills needed by Caymanians to move into skilled and senior management roles and reduce the reluctance on imported labor?
Great question. All day, every day, I have the privilege of working with some of the most finest young people in our country. What is heartbreaking is that all of these youngsters have come out of our public school system and they have nowhere else to go. They stay unemployed, many of them, for years, or they bounce between low-income paying jobs. We have 0 training programs that's connected to actual jobs in the market. Our goal going forward have to be a little bit different. So here's what the plan has to be going forward. We have to be able to connect education and work and labor. Education and work do not meet. Education manages all of our curriculums, work manages our labor force. And yet, these two ministries and departments never get together and say to themselves, okay, how much labor do we need to fill the jobs that we have in our country? So therefore, we have an over-reliance on foreign labor. We've created the Level 1 certificate in our education system. Let me tell the listening public what the Level 1 certificate is. It is a young person getting 5 E's, F, and G's. 80% attendance and less than 15 days attendance, and a young person can walk out of school with a cap and gown and do absolutely nothing. We have to connect that to now a certification in something. We have to start to get people excited again. Our people have to be excited again about getting their hands dirty. We have many different industries that we've created in our country that's paying thousands of dollars. Yet, the majority of our young people don't even know where or how to access those jobs. And we can do this from their school system. We have to engage young people as early as year 7 or years 5 through years 12. The majority of our youngsters only get some form of development when they get into SciFac, and it's far too late. I graduated in 1990. At that time, we could afford to actually have where we weren't prepared. Today, our children have to be prepared as they walk out of our high schools. So we have to make sure that we are moving this forward as quickly as possible.
Thank you, Mr. Miles. Mrs. Gomez-Wilson, I'll repeat the question. What strategies would you propose to address the skills needed by Caymanians to move into skilled and senior management roles and reduce the reliance on imported labor?
First of all, any job where there's a qualified Caymanian should go to a Caymanian. And I know that that's easier said than done. But at the root of all of this, I have to refer to the parents of the children, of the youth, of the people coming up into the workforce. I remember growing up, education was invaluable. My parents pushed me, even against my will at times, to go and get my education, to do whatever it was necessary, because it was the one thing that could never be taken away from me. And I thank them every day that I went as far as I did with my education, because it has gotten me very far in life. It has opened up experiences for me I never thought that I would have. And it is something that my children are going to be pushed, no matter what this world looks like in the next 20 years, those children are going to be pushed to get their skills, to get their education, and to know their value in society. Hospitality in particular is one of those areas. My husband likes to go to the Bahamas every now and then, and we went a couple years ago, I can't remember when, and I was just so in awe of how every single person at those hotels was Bahamian, from the person that drove you to the hotel to the person that checked you in. Every single person in that hotel was from the Bahamas. I can't tell you how many people I've come across that have told me they have not had one single interaction with a Caymanian in the Cayman Islands, whether they're an overnight stay passenger or a cruise ship passenger. I shouldn't say cruise ship passenger because they do actually have a lot of interactions with Caymanians. But these are roles that I don't know what the stigma is against, but there's some incredible opportunities to have Caymanians in these senior positions, in these senior management roles. And I'm not sure what is stopping that from actually happening. There is no better person than a Caymanian to promote the Cayman Islands. It's that simple, and we're missing out on a huge opportunity to upskill, to train all of these young Caymanians to have these senior roles right here in the hotels that line 7 Mile Beach.
Thank you, Mrs. Gomez-Wilson. Mrs. Turner, do you need me to repeat the question?
Thank you. The strategy is simple. We have to have a culture shift in the way we actually employ. We have to be more robust and look at the way in which opportunities are given through our human resources and the job placement agencies. Many a times, glass ceilings are created just by what we are actually stigmatized as being locals. Caymanians need to be able to be placed in a position where persons are willing to give them a chance in order to climb up the corporate ladder and one day actually sit in those senior and management roles. If the opportunities are not given there, because what it appears is that friends are actually being replaced by, and your Caymanians with the skills are not given the chance in the first place. We have to look nationally at where we're going, as I alluded to at the beginning of this forum. Where do we want to go? Do we want to divest where our income is coming from? Do we want to look at health tourism? Do we want to look at sports tourism? Know what we want to go and start directing our career pathways from the schools for where we want to go from a national perspective. And until that is done, we have to be given our people a clear chance. Someone has to take the chance on them. It cannot be this false sense of security where trying to get placements in job or upward mobility is blocked because many of times you will have a friend or a family member that is not from here, that they are secured for the position first. That behavior has to change, and it takes a collective effort on both parties, the applicant and the human resources and those job placement agencies, to make that a reality. Caymanians sometimes are placed in positions to set up for failure because they may make noise. But having access and constantly improving their skill sets within the workforce, that too is a problem. Funding has been given, but how many people are even aware or given the opportunities by their seniors or their managers in order to participate and upskill themselves?
Thank you, Mrs. Turner.
All right, it's my turn. Over to me. Mrs. Gomez-Wilson, you ready?
I was born ready. I just wish I didn't have the flu tonight.
All right, so this one has to do with healthcare. What reforms or improvements would you recommend to the current healthcare system?
My background is in business development, marketing, communications, those things. And a lot of my strategies throughout the years were crisis management and taking preventative measures before something even happened. That is something that I plan to carry throughout my whole process. Everything that I do, I want to think about what we can do to prevent a lot of these things. Now, one thing that we've identified in Cayman is that we've got a lot of issues with heart disease. It is a huge, huge issue for Caymanians. And that, in essence, transfers for insurance issues. It also transfers onto the care that it requires when somebody has heart disease. All of these things add up to put a massive, massive strain. Sorry, can you put the question back on the board for me, please? Okay. All of these things don't need to, I feel, escalate into the point where we have so many people dealing with the same issue. Preventative measures in this case, where we introduce way more nutritional programs, exercise programs. One key thing that I want to do in the Prospect constituency in particular is to introduce walking groups, exercise groups, yoga classes, ways to deal with your well-being, nutritional classes. I came across a constituent who owns a farm, an extensive farm, and it's just beautiful. Grows all of his local produce. He teaches on me in particular. He taught me a lot on what I need to achieve my height, my nutritional height. And all of these things, I feel that if we introduce them to people at a Caymanian, at a young age, we can get somewhere with preventing things like heart disease that take a toll on the healthcare system, that take a toll on cost of living. All of these things that we can do to prevent these issues from even happening are some of the first steps that I think we definitely need to take.
Okay. Mrs. Turner, do you need me to repeat the question?
No, not necessary, but thank you. Affordability and access to quality health care is of paramount importance. The separation of public health is one of the things that I embarked on when I was elected in 2021 as the Minister of Health, Wellness and Home Affairs. Separation of public health from the HSE, making it a standalone department so that more public health personnel into our communities that will take our country to where it needs to be in looking at more preventative care, early detection, and continuation of care standards. This is where our country needs to be. Also looking at the Pharmacy Act of 2024 that was passed under my leadership, the regulations that replace an act of 1979. What this does for the people, should I be returned to elected office on April 30th, is that it will actually give better access to medicines and provide more career opportunities in that industry. I also embarked on legislation for amendments to the Health Insurance Act that ties right into the healthcare system because it's all intertwined. That act in itself that is right there will aid for better governance and accountability for insurance providers. It also would provide better benefits to customers who are not just dropped off when they're at their most vulnerable with increased premiums. And it places teeth in this piece of legislation that will hold insurance companies to a process so that when they're not able to just exit the market by closing the doors and leaving their customers hanging within the balance. These are all key elements that ties in to a healthy healthcare system, but most and foremost, affordable access to quality health care for all. And contrary to what others may feel, that data is not important, the STEP survey says our trajectory in the Cayman Islands is real. And that is why I can forecast how much dialysis equipment is going to be needing, that the fact that we have an aging society and definitely a change in culture, more private-public sector partnership will be needed for the well-being and quality of life of our residents.
Thank you. Mr. Miles, do you need me to repeat the question?
Oh, thank you. We live in a country where we have borrowed in the last 4 years almost $700 million. We are still talking about healthcare. I remember when I got into government, I was about 18 years old. We were talking about healthcare then as well. I'm 51 years old. I've been out of government for a while, but we've never really prioritized it. We have the money, and yes, data is necessary, but we have data. What politicians consistently talk about is more and more data, more and more reports, more and more consultations. We have to get beyond that. What we have to do is get a plan. So let's get the plan, because I think that we all know that more and more plans have been developed out there. We now have to transition to implementation. We have $2.4 billion in, according to the Auditor General, in unfunded healthcare liabilities. We spend as a country on just indigent healthcare $80 to $100 million a year. In addition to that, that doesn't even include the government-owned companies who spend an excess of another $500 million on just healthcare and pension together. So let's move on from data and let's start to talk about what we're going to do. So let's do some stuff. So the goal for us right now is to implement a national healthcare plan. And let's fund it because we have the money to fund it. In addition to that, I agree with Crystal. I think that more public consultation in terms of putting things out there on health and lifestyles have to be done. I also believe, and my organization will be helping people to understand where to get better medications. We have a country of growth. We have a country of sustainability. We have a country of money. What we are not doing is reallocating the money to the necessary places. We know that we have an aging population. And as my colleague just said, data have told her. So at the end of the day, why aren't we funding it? Let's now get it funded.
Thank you, Mr. Miles. Mrs. Turner, this will be the last question before the next break, and I'll start with you. What is the most significant contributor to the high cost of living, and what would you recommend, if elected, to address it?
Thank you. The most significant contributor to the cost of living right now in the Cayman Islands, as seen, is the cost of utilities. One of the things that I would address is actually going back to, again, what I started with at the beginning, making sure that we can assist and work with lowering the cost of fuel, making homes more efficient, and actually making sure that those applications and regulatory requirements needed in order to lower the cost of fuel are dealt with in a timely manner, which is why it's key that persons that are placed on necessary boards and councils come with the skill set so that things can be dealt with and answered at pace. Another issue is making sure that we can look to see that there is enough, that the living wage and the minimum income is sufficient to run one's households. We need to do more management on that. But the biggest contributor right now to the high cost of living, is what I'm hearing, is the cost of utilities, being able to purchase food, and all of that plays into lowering the cost of expense in order for people to have a positive impact at the tills.
Thank you, Mrs. Turner. Mr. Miles, I'll repeat the question. What is the most significant contributor to the high cost of living, and what would you recommend, if elected, to address it?
I agree with my opponent. Our people are having to choose between medication and paying their utility bill. Our people are having to choose between their utility bill and food, or utility bill and rent or mortgage. But here's the kicker. If the past government knew this, they knew that CUC's contract was up in 2028. They knew that 2 years out, they needed to actually re-sign or at least renegotiated the contract. And here's what happened. They allowed the contract to expire. No one contacted CUC. So now we're stuck with another 20-year contract, thanks to the former government. So they all knew that utility, in particular CUC, was the major contributor in all of our cost of living. But they've done nothing to fix that. And that puzzles me. I looked at the contract today. I've been looking at the contract for the last couple of days, and I've been trying to understand, why would educated people be in cabinet, sit down around the table, allow this piece of contract to expire, and not actually do anything to renegotiate that? So here's what the Cayman Islands National Party is going to do. We have to now put in a consumer protection law. It's sat out there for about 20 years. We've paid for it. Why not put it in? Why not protect our citizens that at the end of the day, it affects housing, food, it affects utilities, it affects all of that. It affects agriculture in our country. It affects things that come in at the port. but yet we are saying that utilities is the most important thing, and we let another 20 years, so we're now hammered. My 11-year-old is going to be suffering on the CUC along with other young people out there, and all our former government had to do was just write them and say, you know something, we actually want to renegotiate this. We have to put in a consumer protection law in this in order for us to be safe going forward.
Thank you, Mr. Miles. Mrs. Gomez-Wilson, do you need me to repeat the question?
No, I do want to agree with Mr. Miles, though. Through my journeys of canvassing, aside from getting chased by a lot of dogs, I do have to acknowledge that I have heard a lot about the consumer protection laws that has come up a lot across Prospect in particular. And I do agree that utilities are absolutely out of control. No Caymanian should ever have to choose between paying a bill or buying food. That is when you know you're at a crisis, you're at a critical point. And I 100% agree that something needs to be done there. But I do have to say that I think health insurance is a huge, huge burden. And I shouldn't say burden because it's a necessity on a family's monthly income. I personally have my 2 children under my insurance plan, and it is a huge chunk of your salary when you're dealing with utility bills that are in the thousands some months. It absolutely blows my mind how my CUC bill can jump from $600, $700 up to $1,500 some months, but these are all things that are out of control. Health insurance is something that I feel the PPM government has decided that, we want to offer free health care to Caymanian children, insurance to Caymanian children to help ease some of those burdens. Utilities are always going to be an issue. That is something that is definitely going to have to be addressed. We cannot continue to deal with the CUC bills that are just astronomical. There has to be some protection around that. But I do have to say that I feel that health insurance is a huge one in particular in terms of contributing to the cost of living.
Thank you, Mrs. Gomez-Wilson.
Well, thank you, candidates. We've gone through 9 questions. Well done. We're going to take a short commercial break. Please stay tuned.
For the past 58 years, CUC has strived to be more than just an electricity provider. We have sought to be a foundational company. We give back to our community, and with the hard work and dedication of our employees, we have built and maintained one of the safest and most reliable electricity grids in the region. As we all look to the future, we at CUC want the Grand Cayman community to have confidence that our commitment to you will continue. Join us as we continue this journey together at empoweringcayman.com.
When you run your own business, you have a career as an accountant, stock taker, delivery driver, therapist, legal expert, mother, father, and the rest. But there's one area you don't need to be an expert in. At Brava, we take the complexity out of your business solutions. We keep it simple, so you can get along with doing what you do. Brava, the Simplify My Business company.
Welcome back to the Chamber of Commerce Forum for the constituency of Prospect. Gone through 9 questions so far. This is the last round of questions. The next question will be posed by past President Shamari Scott. It'll be on cruise and cargo improvements.
All right, home stretch. Start with you, Mr. Miles. The cargo port and cruise facility in Georgetown have not received substantial improvements for many years. What changes, if any, would you propose to upgrade these facilities?
Great question. I know that this has been a debate that we've been having, I would say, probably for the last 10 years. Specifically, we've already gathering or dropping the gauntlet to have another long debate. It's now certainly part of the whole election as well. As I've said, we've borrowed over $700 million. We've always known that the port needed to be upgraded. It simply just needs to be prioritized. We have the money. I think at the end of the day, Customs makes, for our budget, based on the last figures, over $150 million a year. Our responsibility is to make sure that funding out of that has to be provided to the port. I do not believe that we have any sort of evidence at this point in time to build a cruise berthing facility, but I do believe that we have to upgrade the port. When I see people out in the hot sun or in the rain, I'm embarrassed for us as a country, knowing that we are spending a significant amount of money on parks. And I have nothing against parks, but when we're spending $10 million in a park and we need shade to ensure that our tourists can go under, I think it's an insult. In addition to that, we're spending a significant money on other pet projects that I believe we need to reallocate to the port to make sure that we're protecting that investment. In addition to that, I also believe that we need to beef up the DOA and NCC, because I think that ultimately we need to make sure that they're protected, because ultimately they can continue to give us advice on how we update the port and how we protect our environment out there.
Thank you, Mr. Miles. Mrs. Gomez-Wilson, do you need me to repeat the question?
Yes, please.
Okay. This has to do with cruise cargo improvements. The cargo port and cruise facility in Georgetown have not received substantial improvements for many years. What changes, if any, would you propose to upgrade these facilities?
Well, we all know that this is one of the hottest topics this election season. I don't think you can speak with anybody who doesn't have strong opinions, either opposing or for a new infrastructure in Georgetown. I fully support implementing the decision that we've decided to have the referendum around the cruise tourism industry and the future of it. Giving the people the power to answer that question, I think, is a step in the right direction. Cruise tourism, as we know, is significantly important for the Cayman Islands. Everybody already knows this, and I've taken the time to speak to a lot of people on both sides of the fence. Cruise tourism, if we don't do anything about it now, is directly affecting about 1,500 Caymanians who own and operate their own businesses as a result of all of the cruise ship passengers. You know, not having facilities to accommodate larger ships does put a little, block on how much business they can attain every month. And indirectly, that actually affects about 6,000 Caymanians. So there are arguments to each side of this. But I've also taken the time to speak to a lot of the younger Caymanians who are actually against any development in terms of expanding the port and building a new port, because they are more concerned with the conservation of Cayman and our environment. In any case, a cruise infrastructure would require a lot of business cases. A new structure, would require a lot of business cases and environmental assessments and public consultation, which is exactly what is going to take place during the referendum on April 30th. So for those of you who are considering not voting this election, for whatever reason, I need you to understand how crucial this election is, how crucial this referendum is. A lot of lives, a lot of decisions, a lot is at stake. Don't let anybody else decide your future.
Thank you. Mrs. Turner, do you need me to repeat the question?
No, not necessary. Thank you. It goes without saying that the cargo facility that is dual purpose for cruise as well needs an upgrade. How it is achieved has to be done in a succinct, sustainable manner with respect to both sides of the coin. Those people who make their daily living from tourism on a whole, and also looking at addressing the cargo side of it as well. We are saying, what can we do to lower the cost of living in the Cayman Islands, the cost of food? When we look at it from a cargo perspective, and in the upcoming referendum, it is actually lacking thereof of information to answer this very same question that has been posed here. I sat around a table where I know for a fact we are still waiting on the information, the data to actually be collected to see how we would address this. Who would build? Where would it be placed? What are the environmental impacts it would have? And again, that will also encompass the multi-use of this facility. Until that is reached, and it can only be reached coming from an informed perspective, not just by getting a yes, we want it, no, we don't, because this conversation right now, is born on a seed of frustration, anger, and misinformation. Why not come from a data approach? Why not come from an informed perspective when this decision is made? But it doesn't take away that it's impacting our product. It's impacting all of us as residents, Caymanians, stay-over tourism and cruise tourism. But where do we want to go? Until such time, find the necessary fundings. Think of our sons, our daughters, our fathers that are working out there, and for those people who grace our shores, exposed to the elements, and do the necessary funding in order to improve that, while we're coming from an informed perspective by engaging in our public with the right foundation of giving them the information, doing the necessary studies first, and then an official decision can be made.
Thank you, Mrs. Turner.
Mrs. Gomez-Wilson, question 11 will start with you. What is your plan to address the Georgetown landfill?
Thank you. We had a plan a while ago, but time ran out. Guaranteed costs ran out. Nothing was actually done, and now we're still faced with this eyesore that we look at every day. We are living side by side our garbage, and nothing has been done. Everything had been negotiated. We were ready to go. Time ran out. As the new PPM government that we plan to form, that is going to be one of the first things that needs to be addressed. We don't have another 4 years to deal with where our garbage is going to go. We have to look at recycling initiatives. We have to look at different ways. We are a small island. We're not growing land. I can't stress that enough. We are not growing land, and it is time to take those steps to fix these problems. Again, you hear me mentioning preventative measures all the time. This is something that I think that I am going to champion if elected on April 30th, looking at how to stop a problem before it starts. And we should have agreed to all of the circumstances of the regen program years ago to make sure that we had an effective solution for the landfill. But now everything is just too late. But I feel like when we get back into office, that is the first thing that needs to be addressed, renegotiating how we go about an effective way of managing our waste, and definitely dealing with recycling. We have a lot of resources here to do something with our waste. We have a lot of opportunity to do stuff with our waste. We have a lot of local talent by way of IWC that they're coming out with new initiatives, new ways to deal with waste and how to alleviate some of the problem. So I do think that has to be one of the first things that the government has to tackle the minute that they get into office.
Thank you, Mrs. Gomez-Wilson. Mrs. Turner, I'll repeat the question. What is your plan to address the Georgetown landfill?
The plan is not in isolation as me being the representative for Prospect, because I am a part of a party, the TCCP. Having sat around the table and actually respected my colleague, as a collective decision, where we are today is a sad case of affairs, but because of lack of information and not wanting to fall afoul of the FFR, we couldn't put or accept what was presented to us at that time, to see it being long-term, sustainability and fairness to the people, not lowering the cost of utility as was proposed. This has to be revisited, and the fine print has to be looked at when contracts are entered into. That's one of the separation of powers as the elected arm when negotiations are taking place. Your MPs who are elected to serve the people of the Cayman Islands and the voters are not allowed to be around negotiating tables. And from what was presented to us, why we do not have a solution at this time is because what was presented was not value for money at that time. This is something that will not go away. I must say that I would encourage more sustainable way of handling our waste, but more long-term solutions that what has been created there. Yes, a waste to energy is something that we can actually look forward to, again, aiding in the lower cost of living here, but only once it's a fair balance that it does not pretty much cripple or put a noose around the people's neck of the Cayman Islands in order to pay it back.
Thank you, Mrs. Turner. Mr. Miles, do you need me to repeat the question?
Our party has looked at this for a while. We have gone through 30 years of reports. We have spoke to a number of different consultants, many of them who have commissioned some of these reports. The goal right now is to ban plastics. I sat on this stage or this table 4 years ago, and we talked a lot about recycling. We still don't live it today. We flirt with the idea of recycling, and yet we have allowed a small organization to basically ban plastics before we do it as a country. And I think it's about time that we ban single-use plastic coming into our country. It's one of the most, I would say, one of the biggest pieces of what's clogging up the landfill. We have to be able to decentralize the landfill at this point. No one wants the landfill in their backyard, but we know the eyesore that it is certainly down in West Bay Road. We have to be able to look at a waste-to-energy site. What is stopping us from doing all of this? Every year or every 4 years, we get together, we elect people, we talk about, a waste-to-energy, banning plastic. We do a lot of this stuff. We commission reports, and then nothing is done. The Cayman Islands National Party is all about implementation of recommendations. We have them, ladies and gentlemen. I refuse to have anyone tell me that we need to go back to the table and draw up more recommendations in order to put things in place. We have to start to implement the recommendations that we have. We don't have to implement all of them at once, but we certainly have enough recommendations that we can reduce that mountain of what we have today.
Thank you, Mr. Miles.
All right. So here we are. Last question. And I will start with you, Mrs. Turner. And this one came from Prospect, specifically from your constituency, and it has to do with Prospect flooding. What actions would you support to reduce flooding in constituency areas?
Sure. I've been proven, tested, and tried on this very subject matter. And I can say that since my election and being elected in office as the elected representative for Prospect, we have seen where flooding has actually been reduced. The simple installation of a pump that got some backlash, but it was a part of a project to prove it can work, being placed to keep a natural soakaway that runs parallel to Mangrove Avenue, being removed and kept at a low level, aided in no flooding. Since 2022, the people of Prospect cannot say that they've had to weather any of the adverse storms, and they were subjected to flooding or stagnated water for days. Now, what that has aided is that we know that it can be a permanent solution, and it also aided in the lowering the mosquito count in our Prospect constituents. The cleaning out of swales, putting in of culverts, and definitely installation of drains, as I've installed 8 drains in the bedrock circle. Pictures speak 1,000 words, from 2021 during Ida and Grace to 2022, 23, and even in 24. It has shown where they have worked, but sustainable implementation of a lift station, making sure that they are pulling the water out of those basin areas, actually is on its way. I've worked hand in hand with Public Works and NRA, and I must publicly thank Minister J.E. Banks, who has worked tirelessly with me in making sure that we can find a solution for that, and it has been proven. Even though I no longer sit at the table as a minister, works in Prospect continue because they have seen with the installation of the pump and the no flooding and stagnated water has worked. Long-term solution is on its way, and the works have already begun in remedying that issue once and for all.
Thank you, Mrs. Turner. I will come to Mr. Miles. Do you need me to repeat the question, sir?
No.
Okay.
I live in Prospect as well, and I'm not sure what my colleague's talking about because I can tell you in the last 2 heavy rains, Prospect has flooded. Just on Sunday, I was in a gentleman's house in Prospect, and he was showing me how high the flood marks have come up. I've received emails from folks all over Prospect that their houses are flooded, the roads are flooded. As a matter of fact, I took my daughter out just so she could see how high the waters were. People have sent me text messages, WhatsApp messages with flooding. I agree that we have to have more pumps, and we actually have to have more pump stations. The thing is, we don't invest in it. We'll invest in it at a small scale, but we don't invest in it. We also we're so reactive to everything. Every year we know when it's going to rain. Every year we certainly have a weather system that tells us how strong those rains are going to be, and yet every year we are caught off guard. Every year we say to our people, well, let's just wing it. We have to do a better job in investing in the necessary resources. I think what we lacked in Prospect, and certainly lacked everywhere, because it's not just in Prospect. I have gone in East End, I've gone in West Bay. Same thing happens. Many places in Georgetown also happens. We haven't actually invested. We know, because I've also spoke to the NRA as well, about what resources they need. They could tell me what resources they need. The biggest issues that they have, it's not priority. And then we all run around and saying, well, let's get it next year. And next year comes and we never actually do it. Flooding is a continued problem. I do not see any changes with it in the last 4 years. So I'm not sure what Ms. Turner is saying about flooding, because I certainly haven't seen it, and I live in the Prospect area.
Thank you, Mr. Miles. Mrs. Gomez-Wilson, do you need me to repeat the question?
No, not at all. Okay. So I actually live in what's called Prospect proper. I'm off of Marina Drive. I have to go through all of it to see, and I can see the flooding when it's happening. I do appreciate that steps have been taken to alleviate flooding, because I remember growing up, Prospect was just an absolute nightmare when it came to flooding. It's because we've built on areas in Cayman that don't sustain water. If it starts to drizzle, the immediate action after that is water starting to form. We don't have enough land in Cayman to live on or to build across high ground. So a lot of the areas, in particular Prospect, are on lower lying areas that they can't deal with the water. And speaking to some of the constituents, in particular up on the east-west arterial, they're dealing with a lot of different flooding problems. Everywhere in Prospect is close to some form of water, whether it's a pond, whether it's the ocean, whether it's swampland, whatever it is, there's water nearby almost every single resident in the Prospect area. And one of the key takeaways I took from listening to one of the constituents is that planning continues to allow development after development to go up in these areas without actually assessing how that is going to affect flooding in that particular area. If it's going to be obstructive, if it's going to cause flooding to be worse, where is the water going to go because of this new structure or this new sidewalk or this new road per se? So all of these things, again, preventative measures have not been taken to identify how we can, in essence, fix some of the flooding issues. I do also agree that, with proper maintenance, with more pumps, We know when rainy season is going to be. We know what to expect. We know when hurricane season is. We know that it is going to cause flooding, and we know in particular what areas are going to flood the worst. It just, it blows my mind how flooding does come up year after year, election after election. We have to identify where this water is going, because clearly it's not going anywhere, and just make sure that some steps are taken, whether it's maintenance, whether it's working with planning, whatever it is, whether it's looking at innovative ways to deal with flood sacks and stuff like that. There's something has to be done in the Prospect area.
Well, thank you, candidates. We've gone through 12 questions, so thank you very much for your cooperation. We're going to take a short commercial break, and when we return, each of the candidates will deliver closing remarks. Stay tuned.
When you run your own business, you have a career as an accountant, stock taker, delivery driver, therapist, legal expert, mother, father, and the rest. But there's one area you don't need to be an expert in. At Brava, we take the complexity out of your business solutions. We keep it simple, so you can get along with doing what you do. Brava, the Simplify My Business company.
At CUC, we care about helping our customers. Here are some quick energy saving tips from CUC, so you can use less energy and save money. Set your AC Smart thermostat to maintain an indoor temperature of 87 degrees Fahrenheit or higher when you are away from home, and have the temperature cool to a comfortable 78 degrees Fahrenheit or higher when you arrive home. Adding insulation can cut your cooling costs by 15 to 45%, depending on your home's size and current insulation. Focus on insulating your attic, walls, and windows for the best results. For your laundry, avoid over-drying clothes. Not only does it waste energy, but it also harms fabrics. Dry towels and heavier cottons separately from lighter weight fabrics to save energy. Your TV and gaming setup can be big energy consumers. Save costs by reducing in-game settings and turning off your console when not in use. Remember, every small step counts. Use energy wisely and make a big difference in your energy bills and the environment.
Welcome back to the Chamber of Commerce Candidates Forum for the constituency of Prospect. The candidates have responded to 12 questions. Now it's time to wrap up, and each candidate will be given 2.5 minutes for a closing statement. We're going to begin with Michael Miles. Then again, remind people that the seating was done by a democratic process. So we begin with Mr. Miles.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to thank you for allowing me to speak with you tonight. I'd like to thank our moderators and certainly our camera folks, but I'd like to thank you specifically because I think that this is going to come down to you and how and what you want. We have seen in the last 10 years, the last 4 years, the last 2 years, successive governments change power. We've all witnessed a number of the things that have happened that ultimately have put our country at risk. We all have to live in our country. We all shop at the same grocery stores. We all have the same CUC bills. We all have the same gas issues. My responsibility in running in this upcoming election is simple. It's really to put all of the things that we have commissioned over the last 30 years to work. We spent the money. We have the budget. We don't need more money. We actually need less people actually doing less things that will cause us more harm. Over the last 4 years, our government has borrowed a significant amount of money, over $700 million. Here's my fear. My 11-year-old is going to stifle underneath that. She's not going to be able to come out from underneath that because she's probably not going to be able to afford housing. I have a 29-year-old that makes a really good living and can't afford housing. I have a mom that is 69 years old that can't retire because she needs health insurance. And I have met hundreds of Caymanians who can't get employment, who can't afford health insurance, who can't afford their CUC bill. That makes me terrified to know that we're going into an election where people are saying, give me another 4 years to do very little. Then the Cayman National Party and I have a plan. And our plan is, let's execute. Let's put outcomes first. Let's put party politics aside. Let's put stupid rhetoric aside. Let's work with civil servants and let's get this going. I have a track record of getting things done. That's always been my job. I don't have the time to sit down and commission more reports that I know that's in front of me. We have all the statistics that we need. That's why I developed Inspire Cayman training. That's why we placed over 100 people in the last couple of years. What I'm asking tonight is give the Cayman National Party an opportunity to work on your behalf. Thank you for allowing me to speak with you. Good evening and have a brilliant week.
Mrs. Crystal Gomez-Wilson.
Good evening, Cayman. I have a very different approach on this. I'm going to keep this short and simple so that you remember everything that I'm saying to you tonight. I think that as a new candidate, one of the key advantages that I have is that I bring no hidden agenda. As I said before, I have no baggage, no personal motives, and absolutely no anger. My plan for this campaign, my plan to be elected as your member of Parliament for Prospect is to lead with love and unity. Those are things I feel the Cayman Islands is in desperate need of. There is no time to tear each other down anymore. We have to start building each other back up. Prospect is my home. It is where I'm raising my family. It is where my son goes to school. I can't abandon that community. I can't forsake that community because it would be forsaking my own family. I get very emotional when I talk about this, but I want you as the Prospect constituents to understand that I will always stand up for you, I will always walk with you. I will always listen to you. If you call me, I will listen. If you invite me, I will come. And if you need me, I will be there. That is a promise I intend to keep. I am part of a much bigger picture, though. We have reached a crucial point in the Cayman Islands, and we need a government to dive head first into action come April 30th. We need the PPM government back in office. We need to move forward with the PPM government back in office. And we need proven, stable leadership. Thank you very much, and I really hope that I can count on your vote April 30th as the PPM candidate for Prospect.
Mrs. Sabrina Turner.
Good evening, and thank you all for hosting us again, second time around, oh my gosh. But it is indeed a pleasure, and thank you for all of those who are supporting, including the good people of Prospect, my immediate family, friends, supporters, and all the persons who've made this evening possible. This debate today has highlighted pressing issues and definitely has highlighted the needs of Prospect and the Cayman Islands as a whole. All are vital to be addressed once it is the mandate of the people and not a select few. As elected leaders, that's why when you go to the polls on April 30th to vote with a clear, free, honest conscience based on the works the candidate you're selecting in Prospect has done, and elect the best person who you feel will be a team player, stand up for what's right, speak up, and work for you at all times, not just upon or around election season. As your incumbent candidate for Prospect, I will continue to operate the first and only well-organized Prospect constituency office. I will continue to address your concerns as I've been doing for the past 21 years. I will continue to deliver results for Prospect and at a national level as well. Once, along with my other TCCP candidates, I have heard here tonight what others will do, but nobody has said, or it has not been cleared, as how they will be executed. With the experience gained over the past 3.5 years, I feel that I am best postured with confidence, I am informed, aware of my constituency issues, and equipped to honestly say that from day one after swearing into Parliament, that I would be able to honestly hit the pavement running and continue the works that remains and even more. I am now seasoned and very familiar with the separation of powers of government, the difference between an MP and the civil service, operations of a ministry, Parliament and parliamentary procedures, including that of caucus and cabinet, in order to deliver for you, the people of the Cayman Islands. So I'm humbly urging you to consider who has the best chance of carrying out and delivering your mandate. Consider who shares your vision and consider who really is committed to serving you best. And with that, I am humbly seeking your support and your vote on April 30th so that we can continue to build, engage, and unite to achieve a community where health, togetherness, unity, and economic vitality goes hand in hand for a better Cayman Islands.
Well, thank you, candidates. It's been a pleasure, and it was fantastic. Gotten through 12 questions. Well done. Now I'd like to turn it over to Omari Corbin, the President of the Chamber of Commerce, for some closing remarks.
Thanks, Will. On behalf of the Chamber Council and staff, I want to thank Michael Miles, Sabrina Turner, and Crystal Gomez-Wilson for participating in this evening's forum. I trust that this forum will help Prospect voters determine who to vote for when they go to the polls on April 30th. I would like to thank Ashley's Furniture, CUC, Foster's, and Logic for sponsoring Chamber's candidate forums. Please join us tomorrow evening as we welcome the candidates from Savannah, Heather Borden and Donna Bush. Remember, all forums will be posted on the Chamber's YouTube channel if you wish to watch them in the future. Thank you for tuning in, and I hope you will join us tomorrow evening. Do have a good night.
When you run your own business, you have a career as an accountant, stock taker, delivery driver, therapist, legal expert, mother, father, and the rest. But there's one area you don't need to be an expert in. At Brava, we take the complexity out of your business solutions. We keep it simple, so you can get along with doing what you do. Brava, the Simplify My Business company.
Why is my bill higher? These days, it might seem like the cost of everything is going up here in Cayman. When it comes to your energy bill, this may be no exception. You may be wondering why your bill is higher when you haven't done anything different in your home. Here are some common factors that will increase your energy usage. As temperatures outside increase, your air conditioning unit has to run longer to keep your house cool, even if you haven't adjusted the thermostat. During the summer months, cooling your home can make up more than half of your energy bill. It's important to maintain your AC so that it can function as efficiently as possible. Changing your AC filters can also help with ensuring units are functioning properly. Remember, for every degree you turn up your thermostat, you can save on your monthly energy cost. Turn off your AC when no one is home. Thermostat should not be set any lower than 78 degrees. Also consider closing blinds and drapes on the sunny side of your home. This will help reduce the temperature inside your home. Remember to consider energy waste. Think about the items in your home that are using energy, like gaming computers and ceiling fans. Always unplug and turn these items off when they are not in use or needed. This will help you conserve. Now that you have some energy saving tips, you can track your consumption daily on MyCUC. Learn more at www.cuc-cayman.com.